What is up, everybody, and welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I am Cass Hardest. That is Jason Due and Lance Lacoste. We appreciate you hopping on here and joining us tonight to talk some ball. And it, it's champ. I guess we can call this our championship episode, although we'll have another one on Tuesday. But we're going to look back at an incredible night of semifinal action from Friday night. Leading into it, I know we were excited about the matchups, and I don't think they disappointed. I don't, it wasn't like every game came down to the final possession, but there were quite a few that did. And we had maybe the biggest shocker of the season happen in Division III Select as well, which we will get to. But what an incredible night of football in Louisiana high school football last Friday as 16 teams punched their ticket to the Superdome. We will take a look back at that right now. And let's go ahead and get started where we always do in Division I non-select, and within that, it seems like we always end up somehow finding our way to District 2 5A into the northern part of the state. We had Ruston. It seemed like a District 2 5A invitational in the semifinals of this Division I non-select bracket, but the Ruston Bearcats hosted the Zachary Broncos. Ruston was looking to punch their ticket to the Superdome for the fourth straight season, and they did just that, holding off Zachary 21-17. This was a high-level football game between two extremely successful, physical, traditional powers in Louisiana. Ruston, Zachary, gets off the bus and they jump out to a 14-0 lead fairly quickly. Ruston's able to answer with three straight scores. No Dalen Powell, no problem for Ruston as they edge out the Broncos 21-17.
Felt like one of those program victories for Ruston, falling behind quickly at home, but no panic. Like you said, three scores, 21 unanswered points to put them back ahead. Zachary got a late field goal, but yeah, I mean, this Ruston football team is just they find ways to get it done. You know, they did it last week where they had to come from behind against Southside, and here they are again. And really starts with their defense. Didn't get off to a great start, but really shut down Zachary for the last three quarters of this football game.
You know, coming in, we discussed that Dalen Powell was going to be out for pretty much the entirety of the playoffs, and he's been such a focal point of that offense. And again, they love to go they love to just run the ball right at you. Cass mentioned before the season, probably one of the biggest stats was that this Ruston team, regardless of who the running back was, they had an all-state player because of their big offensive line. I think you saw that again on Friday night. An incredible job by Gray and Freeman stepping in. And again, the first half, we saw Zachary kind of loading the box against this team, but really in the second half, really started to break off some big runs. Really impressive job by quarterback Sam Hartwell, who also came up clutch with some big runs in this football game. And Zachary fought down to the bitter end. And at one point, they had the lead late, but Ruston again kind of reclaims it. I think this is a Ruston team that we've known since the beginning of the season, was looking to make their way back to the Superdome. 4 straight trips for this team, and it's a really impressive effort from a Bearcat team that is looking to get that bitter taste after last year out of their mouth.
Yeah, we talked about with Ruston being without Powell, they were going to have to find a running game somewhere else. Sam Hartwell did just that, and he was able to. He ran a touchdown. He ran for a touchdown. He also had big runs to convert third downs into first downs throughout that game. And this was a game kind of played out differently than most of the other games across the state as we get into. I don't feel like Zachary necessarily lost this game. I think Ruston just won it. Both teams played fairly well. There wasn't a lot of penalties. There wasn't turnovers. It was just Ruston was able to outlast them just a little bit longer than Zachary. Zachary had to lead at half. Ruston, like Lance said, didn't panic. It was a program win. And, man, you've got to believe that they wanted nothing more than to get back to the Superdome after how their season ended in the Dome last year. And they kind of looked like a team on a mission all year long. They were able to finish this one off. Again, making 4 straight trips to the Superdome, and our state's highest classification is no small feat. So congrats to the Bearcats and that Ruston community. On the other side of the bracket, their opponent next Saturday in the Superdome was going to be a familiar one no matter who won the other game, but it was Ouachita Parish traveling to Neville in a rematch of a District 2 5A game that took place in either week 7 or week 8, in which Neville won by 1 point. Ouachita exacts revenge. They win 14-7 in a defensive struggle. I mean, I tell you, this game, I don't know if y'all saw the picture. The atmosphere for this game was unbelievable. It was packed. I saw a picture that was taken in the middle of the first quarter. There wasn't a line to get into Ouachita side. It was a mob of people trying to get Ouachita side, and they just couldn't get them in to start the game. But that place was rocking at Neville. Ouachita to start the game, the first drive of the game, Montreal Connor breaks a long run, gets inside the 15. They get inside the 5. Neville holds them. Neville gets the football back at the 1 or 2 yard line. They're not able to pick up a first down. They're forced to punt. Ouachita blocks the punt, gets the ball inside the 5 again, and they're able to score. At that moment, I don't know that you were thinking that that's going to be the difference in the game and they were going to win 14-7. But the first 3 drives of the game were huge in determining who won this game. Both of these defenses, so good all season long. They were so good all night long. Ouachita able to come away with a huge 14-7 victory to punch their ticket to the Superdome for the first time since 1994.
The first time these two teams played, it was 38-37. Is that correct? I'm almost positive Neville won by 1 point. And so I think we saw a couple rematches this weekend, and it was kind of a common theme. Now, weather could have played a little bit of a factor, but I think huge shout out to these defensive coordinators and these defensive-minded head coaches and Coach Collins and the way they came out a second time around with a better game plan for these offenses, clearly, right? And Ouachita obviously just played it a little bit better, and a lot of it had to do with special teams play. But I think that's what you get a lot of times when you have really good coaching staffs that seen each other for the second time. These defenses really show up with a much better game plan now that they've seen these offenses, and that's what you saw in this one. I mean, to be able to hold Neville for the first 3 quarters, to shut them out for 3 quarters. We've seen how good this Parker Robinson-led offense has been at Neville. And again, I mean, great job, obviously, by the Neville defensive side as well. So, pretty clean game. But, man, Ouachita found a way to win. It just feels like one of those games where it's really tough to beat somebody twice, especially when it's a very high-caliber opponent such as Ouachita.
The atmosphere was ridiculous. Watching it, even guys, the vuvuzelas are still ringing in my ear from watching this football game. I mean, they came out amped up, and Cass mentioned it. Really, Ouachita came out putting that drive together early, weren't able to punch it in, but that special teams play, again, special teams play, block punt, they're able to punch it in, and their offense did enough. It wasn't an incredible offensive performance by either team, but again, credit to big physical defenses. Berryman in that front 7 for Ouachita Parish really applied the pressure to Neville, and it made all the difference in the world. Really weren't able to get anything going offensively, and that's a Neville offense we've talked about. Probably Neville being the hottest team, if not one of, if not the hottest team coming into this week. They've been playing exceptional. So for this Ouachita Parish team to maybe listen to that noise consistently, kind of realize, like, man, we were 1 point away from beating this team earlier in the year, and defensively played a very physical football game. Came away very impressed with Ouachita Parish, but not shocked by any means. This is what they've done all season, and it just finally things are turning in their favor. And now they'd love nothing more in that rematch with Ruston than to kind of complete their vindication and redemption tour after what was a tumultuous, rough regular season, which, again, they were in every single ball game, just couldn't come away with a big win against one of those Big Four teams. So really excited to see that matchup in the Dome.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that Neville stream, they got to have the best stream in the state.
It's great.
I mean, would y'all agree with that? Oh my God,
Yeah.
It looks like ESPN.
No
Just everything about Neville just seems so first class out there.
They even got the commercials, man. They got
unbelievable.
Theirs is up there. LCA's is really good. Like, they have some really good streams across state, and Neville's is definitely up there. Incredible job.
Yeah, no, they do a great job. And Jason, I was going to say the same thing that you just said. It almost feels like that 4-week stretch they had in the regular season, it's starting to turn, and it started to turn against Destrehan 2 weeks ago. Now they needed to do it. It obviously needs to happen one more time. But there were 2 things from this game. One, I don't think that we would do this any justice if we didn't mention this. And this is not why Neville lost the game. But there was a play, a pass in the end zone in the first half for Neville that could have been a touchdown, could have not been a touchdown. It depends. It almost depends on what you think a catch is and what a completion of a catch is. It was close. The ball looked like it was caught, got tipped away. It was called incomplete. The other thing, Washington didn't turn the ball over.
Yep.
And when they don't turn the ball over, this is an offense that's going to be able to control the football, kind of dictate the terms of the game. And even though they only got in the end zone twice, because they didn't turn it over, and obviously they had the block punt, they're able to squeak out a win on the road. Man, you got to feel for Neville. Second year in a row, they're hosting a semifinal game. It's the second year in a row that they're not able to finish the deal and end up in the Superdome. But that's a program that they'll be back under Coach Collins. That's for sure. All right. On the select side of things, in Division I, Carr Catholic, this is the second year in a row Catholic has taken Carr to the absolute brink of elimination. My thought after watching this game, and I'm going to say this, Jason, and you're going to laugh because I know I'm the leader of the St. Aug bandwagon, but when this game was over, I felt like I just watched the best two teams in Division I play each other. That was the feeling of it. These two teams traded punches all night long. The defenses for both of these teams were unbelievable. Both defenses threw a shutout in the second half. The final score was 17-10. Carr scored right before half to make it 17-10. It felt like at that point they were going to try to pull away. Catholic didn't let them. Both teams just traded punches, traded body blows all night long. Catholic's driving deep into Carr territory inside of 2 minutes. I think they get down to like 20-yard line. Carr forces a fumble. That was Catholic's fourth turnover of the night, which was the difference in the game. Carr recovers. Carr wins 17-10 to punch their ticket back to the Superdome and play for a state championship.
This game kind of went as I expected in the sense of I knew that Catholic was going to give Carr everything that they could handle. And they did just that. They turned it over. I think you already said, I think they turned it over three times, still kept this game that close. Was it 4 times? Yeah. 4 turnovers, still kept it this close. Some of that could have had to do with the weather, but as I kind of looked at the highlights and stuff of this game and the whole breakdown, it just felt like Carr's big-time players made some big-time plays when it mattered the most. Aiden Hall was unbelievable. I believe he had 2 of the turnovers. Richard Anderson was completely unblockable as he's been all year. And then the kid that really doesn't get enough love, in my opinion, is Romeo Brown. We loved watching him against Holy Cross early in the season. The only thing I don't like about this kid is that he's going to Nichols because I think he's going to be a monster. I think he's going to be a monster in the Southland Conference these next few years. And so super impressive. He'd be the best player on just about any other high school football team. But he had a big fumble recovery, and he's just you can't handle Richard Anderson because you also have to deal with Romeo Brown. There's no doubling anybody. And so, in the end, Carr found a way to win, which is what great teams do. This is the first time we've really seen this team be challenged. And so when they needed to get it done, they got it done.
I think when you look at those turnovers, one of the big things that we didn't mention was a lot of those in the red zone. Like there was a lot of big red zone stops for this Carr football team. And if you go back to the preview show, I mentioned I felt like the strength of this Carr football team, as much as everybody wants to point to their offense, and rightfully so, there's athletes all over the field. I said I felt like it was this Carr defense. And ultimately, they stood up to the challenge yet again against a Catholic football team that's able to move the football in so many different ways as well. I said maybe one of the best multiple teams in the state. But looking at this game, the sky kind of started to open in that second quarter. And that was kind of one of the big things that we noticed was, and I think, Cash, you mentioned it, the last time that Carr lost a football game, it was in similar conditions, and I was there. It was against Acadiana. Now, what I think is the big difference is Trey Garrison. Trey Garrison and that offensive line I want to give credit to. A big game running the football, 121 yards on the ground. They did connect Johnson did connect for a 37-yard touchdown pass in the first half to Owens. But really, I think that run game, being able to run the football effectively in that type of weather makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this knowing full and well that this Catholic program's not in this thing for moral victories, but man, the last 2 years, what they've done in the semifinals against, especially this year, which until proven otherwise is the best team in state, maybe by far. what they've done has been nothing short of unbelievable. They will definitely be back, but it was so impressive to watch these two teams go at it. Like you mentioned, in the conditions they were in, and yes, I know Catholic turned it over 4 times, but just the quality of play was so good. The quality of player on the field, it was fun to watch. It really was. It was really fun to watch. And, it stinks for Catholic. They're not going to like any part of it. But, man, what a showing and what a game that was. On the other side of that Division I select bracket, speaking of games, St. Aug Curtis in a rematch of a Week 10 game in which St. Aug in the Week 10 game scored the most points given up by a Curtis defense under Coach JT Curtis with 55. We knew that wasn't going to be the case again. But, man, what a game. St. Aug wins 31-29. They score on the last play of the game, the very last play of the game. They get the football. They drive down inside the 10. They hit a short pass with about 7 seconds left. It's blown dead out of bounds with 4 seconds left. There's one play left. The receiver on the single receiver side runs a quick little in and then right back out. The defensive back slips down and Bashan Coulon's able to hit him for a touchdown at the buzzer to win the game. It's St. Aug's first state championship since 1979. The St. Aug defense, we said they were going to – they've shown up really all year long, but they were going to have to win football games for them. They kept them in it, and this offense came alive late. That last drive was a 70-yard, 6-play game-winning drive that came down to the literal last second of the game. What a football game. It's an unbelievable game by both of these teams. St. Aug's moving on to the Superdome for the first time since 1979.
Everything about this game was everything you could have ever dreamed this matchup could have been in a Catholic League Coliseum. All the video footage coming out of it is just incredible with the crowds and everything.
About the security at Gormley, or are we just going to let everybody run on the field?
Everybody just ran onto the field. Nothing bad happened, luckily, but I mean, it was something else. I mean, I flipped over to this just in time for like when Curtis scored with 39 seconds left. Part of me felt like, man, I can't believe this is happening to St. Aug again because it's going to be the first time they lost in the semis, right? I mean, I think all the way back to me and Cass as little kids going to see St. Aug. Yep, they lost to West Monroe in the semis at Tag Gormley, and so it seems like they've been so close so many times. But at the same time, also knew 39 seconds was enough time for Bashan Coulon to get it done, just as he did. This kid, Derek Bennett, is the receiver that caught the touchdown pass. Mm-hmm. This kid is unbelievable. He's their third receiver, and he's unbelievable. He went off when Holy Cross was playing St. Aug real tight early in the season. He was the all-star of the second half that came on and made a bunch of catches. As we talked about, St. Aug is without their number 2 receiver, who's an LSU kid, I believe, or at least an LSU caliber player. And so this kid, Derek Bennett, has stepped up all year long. When they needed it most, they went to him as a single receiver. That was just a one-man route, it looked like, where he showed the slant, broke out right to the pylon, kind of picked on a younger cornerback of Curtis. But, I mean, that's what good coaching is. They knew where they had to match up. And then they got it done. It's really cool to see everything that Coach Valdez has done for that program. On the other side of it, John Curtis is ahead of schedule. They have a young team. London Paget, the sophomore quarterback, is a really good player. He threw a beautiful touchdown pass in the second half. I think he had more than one, but he's a really good player. They have a lot of sophomores and juniors on this Curtis team. For them to be in the semis 2 years in a row with the young teams, that next year is really the year they're building towards. I know this John Curtis team, well, of course, they wanted to be back in the Dome. I think they're really excited about what they have in the future of their program.
When you look at the game, and again, I got to watch it. It was, it was a fun football game to watch. And Cash, you're talking about, it felt like the two best teams. I think these two teams are making an argument too.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, it was a really hard-hitting, fun football game to watch. I think the big difference was St. Aug jumped out early. A few mistakes by Curtis early on, but again, they fought back like they always do. And just it felt like back and forth. Like it seems like both teams kind of grabbed momentum at different times, and Curtis kind of went into their signature, let's melt down the clock mode and just continue to run the football down their throat. And it felt like things were kind of going their way. But Derek Bennett, as Lance mentioned, just a fantastic football game. And yes, he made the last catch, but really time and time again, he came up with clutch plays. Also, what about this St. Aug team, man? So we talk about that last drive, 39 seconds, they drove 70 yards down the field. in 6 plays. Just a really impressive effort by this offense. And again, to the same sense, impressive effort by this Curtis team, who they're not a passing football team. Like, they can pass, but they predominantly want to run the football. I thought Pageant did an incredible job passing the football for this team. We know this big physical offensive line. They like to bully people, but still finding a way to pass the football and come up with big plays. But I think Cass made the point earlier about that the catch or non-catch earlier. There was some controversy over that last drive when you whether or not he should have been whistled inbounds or not. There was 4 seconds left. Again, I'm not saying definitively or not. I'm saying I looked at it. There was 3 different angles that I saw it. It looked like he stepped out to me. So again, I know but in the heat of the moment, it's very close, and you don't have 4 different angles or replay to rely on. So, but I will say that was an incredible finish. Some would argue game of the year. I think that's a justifiable statement, but a really just an impressive season for Coach Robert Valdez and the St. Aug football team to now go play at Nicar in the Dome. I think that's going to be an electric atmosphere Saturday night, and it should be a really fun football game.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. That is going to be awesome. But yeah, to your point, St. Aug's won 8 straight since they played Carr first week of October. They've rattled off 8 straight since that loss, and now they get to see them again next Saturday. I can't wait to watch that one. We'll get into that Tuesday. Then we'll have to slow our roll down a little bit. In the Division II non-select side, you look at the bracket and you're going to see the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed playing in the Superdome. But the process for which it took to get there was anything but chalk. North DeSoto, the 1 seed, beats Plaquemine 58-44 on Friday night at home in Stonewall, Louisiana. Plaquemine jumps out to a 14-0 lead. They extend it to 30-14, and then North DeSoto's and that offense just got going. Luke Delafield, Kenny Thomas, the running back for North DeSoto, they did it on the ground. They didn't ask Delafield to throw for 400 yards, and like he's done so many times, it was Kenny Thomas, I think, rushed for 3 touchdowns. This was an impressive victory. One, because they beat this Plaquemine team was for real. That's a real team. But the way that it happened, North DeSoto didn't panic. They didn't freak out. They just continued to play their game. They went to the running game, like I said earlier, to try to turn out some explosive plays, and they did just that. They get a big special teams play. Kenny Thomas returns a touchdown returns a kick for a touchdown. They get a fumble return for a touchdown. This North DeSoto team, man, they're the real deal. But this Plaquemine team, what they did, all year long, but especially this past Friday night, in a tough place to play. What a football game! And North DeSoto scored the last 2 touchdowns of the game to win by 14. What a football game! Hats off to Plaquemine for what they did. But North DeSoto returns to the Superdome for the first time since 2022, looking for their first state championship.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could say about this Delafield and Thomas's backfield for North DeSoto. We've talked about them all year long. I thought if there was a most impressive unit of the weekend, it would have been this North DeSoto offense. I saw this Plaquemine defense the previous week. I'm still confident when I say that Plaquemine is really good on defense, but North DeSoto goes and puts up 58 points. I think that just really speaks volumes to just how good this North DeSoto offense is. And so, yeah, I mean, pretty much leave it at that. This is super impressive. The coolest point from our notes here is that there's this North DeSoto team. They went to the Dome in 2022 as freshmen, and so now it's like these freshmen that have already kind of been there and tasted it. Now they get to go back as seniors. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think when you look at this football game, it came really down. I got to watch it in its entirety, but it really came down to 2 points in this game. Well, first of all, when you look at the first quarter, you look at the final score, right? 58 points for North DeSoto. They put up goose egg in the first quarter. Yep. So the fact that they were still able to put up 58 points just speaks to the explosiveness of this football team. They came up with a big turnover in the red zone when the game was tied at one point and put up a touchdown. I think that was a big key. But also at the end of the first half, with the game tied, Plaquemine had an opportunity to go into the half and put up a touchdown, and they weren't able to do that. And when they came out the second half, with the game being tied, they decided to go for it on their own side of the 50-yard line, and it didn't convert. So I think ultimately that kind of played into the way this game finished out, and Luke Delafield icing it with 2 big runs at the tail end of the football game. This is a Griffins football team that we've talked about explosive offensively, and we kind of knew, we even looking at last week when we talked about that Franklinton game, this is a really good football team, and they have a huge opportunity ahead of them in the Superdome. And I think it's going to be a really fun. We mentioned before the season, like this felt like one of the more wide open brackets, but we talked about North DeSoto kind of being on that short list, maybe even the front runner, even going in. And after that West Monroe game, kind of said for a while, like this felt like the best team. However, I think there's a team in that bottom part of the bracket that feels like they got something to say about it.
There's no doubt about that. And this was, you're right. There's North DeSoto team. They've been so impressive week in and week out all year long. Looking for the school's first state championship. They seem like they're on a mission. And you look, we can talk about being on a mission. Everybody wants to win the state championship. They have the players, they have the coaching staff, they have the culture. Go do it. This is a fun team to watch. I can't wait to watch them next Friday. Their opponent, they'll play next Friday. Their opponent next Friday is the number 2 seed Iowa Yellow Jackets, who won last week, beat Belle Chase 28-21. They will make their school's first appearance in the state championship game. This is an Iowa team that I believe was the 2 seed last year as well, lost in the semifinals to Franklinton. They get another chance to host a semifinal game. The 3 seed Belle Chase Cardinals travel all the way from Belle Chase out to Iowa. Iowa wins 28-21. We talked about this last Tuesday leading into the week, looking at the weather. Special teams turnovers were going to be keys in the game. Belle Chase turns it over 4 times in this game. They lose 28-21. Look, this Iowa team is extremely good. This defense for Iowa is really good. When you add 4 turnovers to it, it makes it almost impossible to win. But credit to Belle Chase. Iowa gets out to a 21 or 20-7 lead. Belle Chase continues to chip away. They're able to cut it to a 28-21 final. Just not enough late, but extremely impressive season by this Belle Chase team. But Iowa moving on to the Superdome for the first time in school history.
This was the one I was locked in on the whole night. Watched just about. I had this one going on my phone while I watched the Green Wave punch their ticket to the playoffs, and so this was a really good football game to watch. You did a pretty good job there summing it up. It was a game that Iowa was up by 13, 14 points the majority of the game, but Belle Chase just kept on swinging and kept getting back into it in different ways. My overall takeaway was that this Iowa football team, their atmosphere was great. You could tell it's a team that has done a lot of winning recently, a lot of excitement in the stadium. The Iowa defense was really, really good. I know in the end, this looks like somewhat of a high-scoring game. It didn't feel that way watching it. It felt like every single yard was earned. And really a lot of the points were created off of turnovers. Caston Lewis is one of the best football players I've watched this year. He did it in all phases of the game. He was unbelievable on defense. He was everywhere tackling. He had a couple interceptions. He forced 3 turnovers on his own. And then even on the offensive side, it was crazy. He would force a turnover on defense, and then he'd line up in the backfield on offense, and then he'd go finish off the drive and finish what he started on offense. And so
like he was playing, make it, take it.
Yeah, he just
himself.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter who actually. It didn't matter what team had the ball. He ended up with the ball somehow. And so, but he was great. The Iowa defense was great. And again, I was really proud of watching these Belle Chase team. They fought throughout. When it was 20-7, it felt like Iowa was going to put it away, and Dylan Carter broke a 55-plus yard touchdown flying down the field like we've seen him do all year. And again, made it a close game. And then Iowa scored again. And then in the end, Belle Chase did have a chance. They had the ball with about 5 minutes left, couldn't get anything going, and Iowa ended up icing the game. But this was a really, really good game. Iowa is a real deal. You know, we didn't really know, and after watching them, we know they are really good on defense. And they have one of the best players that I've seen.
The challenge about kind of gauging Iowa all season hasn't been if they're good. It's been,
right.
Well, how good has their competition been? And no offense to their competition, but when you look at a team that's beaten every single opponent by 14 plus before they get to the playoffs, you kind of look at it, well, maybe there hasn't been the best competition. But even when they're playing these football games, late in the season, in December, they're still winning these football games through, again, their playmaking ability on offense and their defense. And I think that's what's so impressive about this football team. They just find a way to win, regardless how it is, regardless if they need to lean on their defense or their offense. They just consistently find ways to win. Back-to-back weeks, they win by the same margin at home in front of their crowd against two really good football teams from this area. So I think this is a team with an opportunity that they're going to go to the Superdome for the first time. And what I love is in this division, we are going to see a brand new state champion, a team that has never won it before. And that's what this is about. And I think that's going to be really exciting. We talk about Cass and Lewis, but this whole Yellow Jacket football team, they're fundamentally sound. Really excited to see how they play this Griffin football team in the Superdome. And I think this will be one of the more interesting football games that we get to see this week in the Superdome.
Yeah, and this is a rematch of we talking about North DeSoto making it to the Dome in 2022. They beat Iowa in semis. So this is an Iowa team. This senior class has been to the semifinals 3 times. They finally get over that hump to win and make it to the Dome. So very interesting. They also played in 2023 quarterfinals. So these teams are going to be familiar with each other. It is going to be nice to see a first-time winner. Lance, you mentioned the atmosphere at Iowa. I'd like to commend whoever it is that takes care of their football field. Their football field looked immaculate. It was grass, like the grass was green. It looked sharp. Cool setting down there for some high school football down in Iowa. On the select side in Division II, 2 familiar foes. The number 1 seed, St. Charles Catholic Comets, hosted the number 4 seed, U High Cubs. I think, 30-ish minutes in, and I think this might be the 3rd or 4th time we said this. This might be the game of the night. But these 2 teams, it seems like they play every year, twice a year, and every time they get together, it is a game exactly like this. St. Charles storms out to a 20-0 lead. U High just chips away. Again, no panic from either one of these teams, but especially U High, they just keep chipping away. They get it to within a score. They score with under 2 minutes left. And what do we talk about every time we talk about St. Charles Catholic? They play defense and they play special teams. St. Charles blocks the extra point to keep it a tie game. They force overtime. Landry LeBlanc runs in a touchdown from 10 yards out to take the lead. The defense holds. St. Charles goes on to win 34-27 in overtime. This is exactly what we would expect for when these 2 teams get together. This is everything that we thought would happen. St. Charles makes a big special teams play. They end up winning in overtime.
I'm sure Jason has a lot more to offer on this game, but did this game go almost exactly like I talked about? Is that crazy? Like, I'm just looking at it all like Landry LeBlanc, about 100 or so yards passing, about 100 yards rushing. He actually ran for 3 touchdowns, though. I think that's more than what we were.
I think the only thing you missed on is that Skylar Edwards did not score.
He's got to find a way to score. But he still had got
to make you right.
About 100. Yeah, he had about 100 total yards, right? And then they did it on special teams. You said it, the block field goal, but they were 2 for 2 on field goals as well, right?
Yeah.
So not only did they take away a point in special teams, they put up 6 with their field goal unit. And so, it's amazing. They just find ways to do it. So go for it, Jason. What you saw?
Well, look, you mentioned special teams and the 20-point start. I think again, special teams, a big return to start the game. They put up 6 points in the first play. It was Landry LeBlanc power. And when the Comets are able to set up quarterback power that early, it's going to come up again. And one thing I think the Comets did a great job of, you're playing against, again, Lamar Brown, who's the number 1 player, arguably in the state on defense, and rightfully so. He sideline to sideline guys, the defensive lineman, big dude. And then you also have Mason Smith, who's a big player for that defense. They ran zone, a lot of outside zone, keep the ball away from the big guys up front, and then they would hit you with that quarterback power. I think when you look at the beginning of the football game, they scored, they kicked a pair of field goals, but was really stood out was there was a point where it was 10-0 and U High goes to a fake punt, and it worked. And I was like, man, that's gutsy. It was on their own 50-yard line, and they come right back out on the next 4th down and run the same exact fake punt, and that's not going to fly. And ultimately, that turned into 3 more points for the Comets. And look, I think the big thing was U High scored before the half, and they came out in the second half. But The problem when you play St. Charles is the way that they're able to attack you. If St. Charles is able to command the football early and hold you to a few quick 3-and-outs or short drives, they're going to melt that football clock and apply that pressure in the second half. A big late touchdown as well in this football game tied the game up. U-High has a chance to go take the lead. All they got to do is put up a PAT. Me and my wife are watching on the couch. I tap her and say, watch this. And what do the comments do? What they always do. They block the PAT, they go into overtime, and they pull out the win. I think there's no doubt about it. U-High would have gone for 2 had they scored a touchdown that overtime, but that St. Charles defense just finds a way to get those stops. And it was a really fun football game start to finish.
Yep. It's the first weekend in December, so St. Charles is making a big special teams play, and their defense is showing up, and they're going to win. That's just kind of how it is, and that's what we've come to expect. It's a high standard, but that's one that Coach Monica started, Coach Stein has built upon, and that's just kind of what they do down there in Laplace. Their opponent on Friday in the Division II Select State Championship game. Look, this may sound crazy, but of the teams that have made it to the Superdome we've talked about so far, maybe the most unlikely might be the defending Division II Select State champs and Shaw Eagles. Shaw goes on the road, plays Vanderbilt Catholic team, hosting maybe the biggest game ever in the history of their school. It's raining, it's cold, it's all the things. Shaw pitches a shutout. Coach Gigan at defense do a tremendous job. Maybe most impressively, Shaw kicks a few field goals in that weather. They're able to get a lead and then kind of extend that lead. But this is a Shaw team, not just last Friday night, but they've gotten – you can just go back to Week 10. And from Week 10 on through, they've gotten so much better. And that's kind of – we would expect nothing less from a Coach Hank Tierney coached team. But Shaw making their second straight appearance in a dome, looking to win their second straight Division II Select State Championship.
Vanderbilt Catholic had a great season. Nobody has beaten this Vanderbilt Catholic team the way that Shaw beat them. It felt like the conditions really played right into Shaw's hands with, we know, their physical, nasty defense and want to run the football. And so it seems like just Shaw was probably built much better for these conditions. It's tough this Shaw at a 7 seed. You said it. They had some ups and downs throughout the season a little bit, but it's because they played an unbelievable schedule. Like we talked about, they played 6 teams that are currently in the semifinals or played in the semifinals. And so I think you're just seeing these guys really reap the benefits of being so battle tested that nothing is going to put these guys on their heels. A muddy field, rainy weather, on the road at Vanderbilt Catholic. They played Carr. They played St. Aug. They don't care, And so I think that's what you see out of this Shaw football team is just they're a very gritty football team that's going to find ways to win, and they're not going to back down from anything because they've already seen the best. And so, beyond that, I mean, this was a closer game than what the final score showed. This game was 10-0 in the third quarter. And so, going into the fourth quarter, I believe it was only 13-0. So this game wasn't as bad as it ended. But with that said, just kind of watching the flow of it, it felt like Vanderbilt Catholic was never going to get anything going against this Coach Giglio defense of Shaw.
Well, they only had 58 total yards through 3 quarters.
Right.
And I think that's a tribute to this Shaw football team and the defense that they played, but also, the elements are undefeated. And I think when this is a Vanderbilt Catholic team behind their quarterback, Kenny, they do like to pass the football, and it was made very difficult. Besides the fact that you already have a really good secondary in Shaw. We've established that plenty of times. So you're looking at a really good secondary plus unideal conditions. I mean, it was a recipe for disaster. And Shaw had to overcome some craziness at the end of the first half. They weren't really thrilled about the way it ended. They thought they should have got another playoff, still going to the half 3-0. But to your point, Lance, the score was 13-0 in the middle of the fourth quarter, and Vanderbilt Catholic had the ball within their own 20-yard line, and they realized, we have to go for it. So they go for it, they fail to convert, and then Shaw puts up a touchdown and returns an interception for a touchdown. So that's kind of how you had those points tacked on. Both teams played a very physical football game. Vanderbilt Catholic just really struggled to get anything going offensively, but that's a credit to Shaw's defense. Both teams played in the same type of environment, same type of weather, and Shaw's ability to run the football really shine bright in this game, along with their swarming defense. Their defensive front really made some big plays, along with I think his name is Webb up front, really was kind of all over the field. So I'm really impressed with the Shaw football team. Now they have to go play St. Charles, which is a game that they remember. We talk about one of the more unlikely paths. Remember, Shaw dropped their last 2 games going into the playoffs, and the St. Charles game was one of them. I don't think this team looks the same after the past few weeks, and I think they're going to remember and keep that in mind as they head to the Dome.
Yeah, the defense has been kind of you can count on the Straw defense every week. They've kept them in every game, and that offense gets going. It's going to make for a very fun matchup in the Superdome with St. Charles. A rematch, like you said. I think St. Charles won 24-0 in the first time they face each other. I don't think that's going to be the case again. We'll see. In Division II non-select, Sterlington hosted St. James. And I think if there was maybe outside of a game we'll get to here in a little bit, a game where you looked at the score and was thinking, wow, how did that happen? This may have been it. That's not to say this Sterlington program, they're in the Superdome for the 5th time in the last 9 years. So they're used to winning at this level and getting to the Superdome. But man, what they did to St. James in the semifinals, this was a 28-24 game at half. Sterlington outscores St. James 28-0 in the third quarter and runs away with this thing. Sterlington rushes the football as well as anyone in the state. St. James, all kinds of talented athletes, just not a match for Sterlington. Sterlington wins 63-38.
Yeah, this Sterlington team, we followed a good bit during the season. I mean, they've made it look easy all throughout the season, except for when they play 5A teams. This feels like a team that if they win Division I non-select, they might have played this weekend as well, or at least been close to it, And so, I mean, they're such a good football team. Now, this St. James team, they did keep it pretty close in the first half, but Sterlington's defense settled in. I want to say St. James maybe didn't even score in the second half, and then Sterlington, their offense just never stopped scoring. And so, but I believe it was 28-24. Sterlington was up, and then just continued the onslaught of scoring, And so, it's Sterlington team. And I will also add Sterlington's uniforms. I really like them. The all black with the Panther claw and the helmet. They got a heck of a program that's been here for years. So it feels like just another Sterlington team here.
And again, we do want to go ahead and shout out real quick before I talk about this. To see Cheese in the
we've got a lot of action in the comments.
Look, about to say we got a lot. There's a lot more than usual. Look, we want to thank him and the guys under the lights for allowing us to be able to stream now on Facebook. We see Larry as well, Larry Reed commenting. We appreciate y'all. Look, this Sterlington team we kind of mentioned. This is a team that just feels like a different kind of beast. Their only 2 losses to the 2 losses for the regular season were against Ouachita Parish, which is a game, guys, that ultimately it really felt like they should have won. Like they were in that football game late. They gave up a late pick 6, I believe it was, and some crazy things at the tail end of that football game. And at the end of that Neville game, it was really just insanity. So this team has been under the pressure cooker all season long. They've felt those big moments. And they scored 3 touchdowns in the second half in under 3 minutes. So they jump out to a 21. They go 21 points in the beginning of the third quarter. They tack on another one. They go 28 points in that third quarter. And ultimately, that won the football game. This is a St. James team that's been big. They've been physical. But Sterlington just feels like just another level. And that's not something I would have thought I'd be saying tonight. I'll admit it. Like I really thought St. James would go give them a big give them a closer game. And St. James put so much emphasis on this football game. And I feel bad for the Wildcats, but look, the Panthers looking to make it 2 in a row, and they're excited about their opportunity to go play Gina.
Yeah, this Sterlington it's a program. Like it's a real program. It seems like they switched what we're calling them now, divisions, classifications. They've been, I think, in all of them between Division 2 and 3. They just win. And they win. And this is it's not just their football program, their baseball programs the same way. Like some of these schools, it's funny how it works. Like there's an athletic department. They are first class in everything they do. They're really good at everything they do. And They know the trip down to New Orleans very well, and they get to make it again this year. They will face, as you mentioned, Jason, a Gina Giant team making their first appearance in the Superdome. They hosted and defeated Union Parish. They won 30-6. This Gina team rushed for 296 yards on Friday night. Cedric Wilson rushed for 167 of those and 3 touchdowns. He also threw a pass. This rushing attack for Gina has been explosive all year long. It's what they've hung their hat on. They beat Union, which is an extremely talented football team, 30-6, and they've averaged more than 50 points a game. It's almost like Union held them to 30 points. Is kind of almost how this feels. But this Gina team, man, the Gina Giants, that had to be an incredible atmosphere on Friday night. Hosting a semifinal game, looking to make their first trip to a state championship ever in school history. It's a community that loves their school, loves their football. They get it done. They will make their first trip to the state championship next week.
Yeah, the Gina Giants, they had a couple of Giants running the football. We've heard about them all year. Cedric Wilson, Daniel Hatcher, they rushed for 300 yards on a very good Union Parish defense. I mean, look at Union Parish hasn't given up many points. If you look at their previous scores against Erath and Kinder, you remember this Union Parish team, they ended 2 undefeated seasons with Erath and Kinder. And so I think for Gina to come out and win 30-6 is really impressive. And again, it really starts with their running game as well as their defense. They're also they're good enough to throw the football as well. Deuce McPherson threw 400 yards. So they're good enough in the passing game to keep you honest and really make you respect the passing game, so you can't just zone in on Wilson and Hatcher. And so I thought a really impressive night by Gina. I thought this was going to be a really close game, but Gina, they've proven it. They've proven it all year. They've done it. I mean, truly all year. They've blown the doors off of just about everybody.
Yep.
Lance, you brought up a good point. I got to watch this game, and what I noticed is early on there was a lot of jumping offsides by Union Parish, and that's kind of because they go set really quick and they snap the football, and it kind of throws off the defense. This is a Union Parish team that we talked about being very physical, and they were out-physicaled. I know it's not really a word, but the physicality of this Gina football team really kind of wore them down. They were able to run the football very effectively, but to you guys' point, I think it was Lance, you mentioned that. But because they were loading the box, because the Farmers had to load the box, they were able to see these man-on-man matchups on the outside and just take advantage of them. And their ability to pass the football really is able to keep these defenses from, again, trying to overload the box. I thought their defense did a great job. This is a team that's consistently been in this situation. They've been in the semifinals, and they're finally getting their opportunity to go down to New Orleans and, again, play for a state title. And there's a lot to be said for that. Now, they're going to have their work cut out for them playing this Sterlington football team. But I don't think Gina really cares, guys. I think they feel like they've been kind of underestimated for quite some time. And I would put them up with anybody in the state. I think they're a really good football team. I think they got their work cut out for them. That's a really good Sterlington team. But I think Sterlington's got their work cut out for them too. So 2 similar style offenses. And yet somehow both teams run veer, double wing type offenses at times. And yet they still put up these gaudy numbers offensively. So it's really going to be an interesting similar style of football being played in the Superdome.
Yeah, always fun when you get a first time team down there, and especially someone not just new, but kind of from a new part of the state, from out there in central Louisiana, making that trip down. That they may shut the town down on Wednesday and just pack up and head on out. That's going to be a fun one for sure. On the select side in Division III, the shocker of the night, I would say. But then when you go back and look at it, maybe it wasn't that shocking. But Dunham travels to LCA. Dunham wins 49-48. Elijah Haven, who was named the Louisiana Gatorade Football Player of the Year this past week, throws for 6 touchdowns, 357 yards. Dunham scores and goes for 2 in the win with about 2 minutes left. They convert to go up 49-48. I watched the last 2 drives of this game. LCA drives down the field, gets it, I think, to about the 40-yard line, they throw a Hail Mary, and I've got to be honest with y'all, the whole time the ball was in the air and until it hit the ground, I thought LCA was going to catch it and win. That's just how the game ended. The ball hits the ground. Dunham wins. Dunham is making their third trip to the Superdome in the last 4 years. They lost last year to Catholic New Iberia. They are looking to make it back to win a state championship for the Dunham Tigers. But what a game. This unbelievable game. Elijah Haven is breaking news here. He's really, really good.
This LCA defense has been really good all year. You know, we've seen them hold down Evangel's offense as well as quite a few others. And so I was really – not to underestimate Elijah Haven by any means. I think he's as close as it gets to Cam Newton from what I've ever seen. But I thought his LCA defense would be a little bit better against these guys. But again, that just goes to just how good Elijah Haven and all these weapons on the perimeter really are. I mean, the numbers from this game are absurd. You already said Elijah Haven had 7 touchdowns. Jarvis Washington, his top receiver, had 4 touchdowns. You know, on the LCA side as well, obviously they put up some big nights too. I mean, Braylon Walker was still great. I mean, he had 400 yards of total offense just by himself. And so this was one I didn't get to watch. I was zoned in on some other games. I was a little disappointed that I couldn't find the right stream for it for some reason. But this looks like the fast break type football game that we expected to see, right? Jason, you muted.
I'm going to have to go back and watch this game in full. I did catch a good bit of it, but look, first quarter was 21 all. I mean, there were 6 touchdowns in 12 minutes of football. Yeah. And that's, you know, it was a absolute track meet. It was just a back and forth football game. So fun to see if you're a fan of offensive football. And I got to see Elijah Haven live a week ago when they played Newman, and well, he looked every bit of the part. It's so easy to just point to him. But what I will say is it truly is a team effort. His weapons on the perimeter, they're all over 6 feet tall. Trevor Heyman is a guy who started the year as a receiver. Because of injuries, they had to move him to the backfield. They move him all around. Jarvis Washington has been just a stud. And again, had a big night that night as well, 182 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. And, you know, Chris Thompson as well. Like, they've got guys all over the field, and a lot of them kind of will have the opportunity to kind of play both ways. My big question coming in was, I know that Dunham was physical up front, but how would they play against this Lafayette Christian team? And it did enough. Only 1 interception thrown by Haven, opposite a big night. Offensively, weren't able to force the turnovers maybe that Shaw was, which is the last time that they lost, but just they beat them in the track meet, guys, and I think that's just as impressive as anything you can say. This is a team that hasn't lost a track meet all year, and somehow they've done them, outdueled them, and it's a credit to their team. Again, making it to the Dome. Guys, they're trying to get their first state title in quite some time, though. They've been there a bunch, but they'd really like to finish the job this time. And I think Coach Weiner and his team have as good of a shot as anybody to get it done next week.
Yeah, and when you pair who may be or what may be the best quarterback in the state, in the region of the country or in the country with one of the best coaches in our state, this is what happens. And it's impressive to watch. This LCA team has been so fun to follow too all year long. What they've been able to do, again, with Coach Stanford, his first full season as the head coach, and what they do offensively, like they've been so impressive. But man, Elijah Haven is the real deal, and I know it's more than just him, but he kind of is the catalyst to make it go, and the confidence that these guys are playing with, man, it's gonna make for a very fun matchup next weekend in the Superdome when they face Calvary Baptist, who went on the road in overtime and beat the Notre Dame Pios. I watched a little bit of this game around halftime, and then I was able to watch the actual overtime period. I've got to tell you, Calvary was down at halftime, and just the way that they came out after halftime, I couldn't tell body language-wise if they were either defeated or if they just knew that they were going to go win the game. It was one of the two. But they look like a very mature football team on the road against Notre Dame. They're able to pull it out in overtime over Notre Dame. Notre Dame ran a play, similar play on 3rd and 4th down in overtime, in which they motioned the quarterback out of the backfield and they tried to run like a stretch power play to the right to that same side. Cavalry defense steps up. We mentioned last week they went to Jules Sumner, won a defensive struggle. I know this game ended at 34-28, but their defense steps up again, big time, makes a play to get them a victory, and they will face Dunham on Thursday night in the Superdome.
Usually when you think of Calvary Baptist, you think of offense and a lot of points being scored. I think that's just been their MO over the years, but it's really been their defense that is getting it done. They have a sophomore quarterback, Hudson Price, that's a good player, but I think they really lean on their defense. They're a little younger on the offensive side. And like you said, I watched a good bit of them last week. Every time their backs were against the wall last week against Sumner, their defense found ways to get it done. And it sounds like they did the exact same thing in overtime of this football game when their backs were truly up against the wall and they had to ice the game and get a win. They found ways to get it done in overtime.
Yeah, it seems like this Calvary's in this situation every year too. Between Dunham and Calvary, I mean, they've been in the dome their own fair share of times. Calvary, I think it seems like they had a group of guys who just found a way to put it together at the right time. They played a pretty tough regular season schedule as well. They beat a Franklin Parish team that I mentioned way in the regular season, way early on, that they felt like one of the teams that had the most athletes in the entire state on one team. Obviously, Lutcher beat them, but still, Calvary was able to beat that football team. And again, this is just what Calvary Baptist does. Like they're road warriors. They kind of embrace that. They go on the road and win big games. And Notre Dame is, we talked about, there's a team that hasn't been below a 9 seed under Coach Cook, to our knowledge. So there's a program with the Pios that they find ways to win in big games. And unfortunately for this one, for them, they weren't able to pull it out. But man, I think this sets up for a really fun matchup between Dunham and Calvary Baptist, offense and defense showcase. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. See if somebody can slow down Elijah Haven, and will it be these Cavaliers?
Yeah, that's definitely going to make for an interesting game Thursday night. But what a season for Notre Dame, and obviously what a season for Calvary. But anytime you're able to go to Crowley and beat Notre Dame, that says a lot. And that the last 2 weeks for Calvary on the road at Jules Sumner, on the road at Notre Dame, 2 very impressive wins. And excited to see them in a Superdome versus Dunham. All right, Division 4 now. We'll start on the non-select side. Haynesville, the Golden Tour, hosting Jeanerette. Haynesville goes on to win 47-6. Jeanerette making their first appearance in the semifinals. Haynesville they just schedule the semifinal game every year because they're in it every single year. They are making, I think this is their 32nd appearance in the state championship, if I read that correctly, something absurd. But Haynesville, nonetheless, wins. They will move on to the Superdome. It's just another extremely impressive performance from this Golden Tour team.
Yeah, Jeanerette had a great run. I mean, you see the scores that they put up just recently. I mean, they blew out everybody. They had a great season, first time in the semis. Great experience for this young program. But yeah, this Haynesville team is just they're a notch above. That Mangum team, they're going to give them some issues, but this one kind of went as expected. You're just talking about a Haynesville program that has been there too many times. Isaiah Washington, one of the best players in Louisiana, he does it all for those guys. And so, not shocked to see Haynesville get it done.
I got to watch the first half of this one, and what you really saw was this Haynesville offense. Again, they're an option-style offense. Just come out early on and just drive the football down Jeanerette's throat. Ethan Henderson, really a big guy carrying the football for this offense. And the very next kick, so they score a touchdown. Next kickoff, Jeanerette returns it for a touchdown. And that was the last points that Jeanerette scored. I think when you look at early on, a heavy dose of ground and pound from this Haynesville football team and put up 2 early touchdowns and their offensive and defensive line are so big and physical. And they got guys that are playing both ways. But really what kind of did them in was 2 pick sixes in the first half, one by Isaiah Washington and one by Donnie Critton, who both guys are all-state caliber players and putting it on. And I think this is a prime example of a team that's consistently there in general, a team who was looking to finally get there. And unfortunately, even though we love the Cinderella story, sometimes the clock strikes 12 and everything kind of goes back to normal. But I don't think Generet's going to be a one-off team. This is a team that I mentioned before the season. They've truly been building, and unfortunately, they run into a Haynesville team that's just constantly there and just had too many athletes.
Yeah, Haynesville again. It's this program is I don't know that we can say anything that hasn't been said about them already. It's unbelievable and extremely impressive what they've done. Lance, you mentioned your Purple Dragons, the Mangum Purple Dragons hosting South Platte. South Platte making a long trip up to North Louisiana. Mangum wins this one. They're 49-14. A great year for Coach Feet and the South Platte team. This was going to be a tall task and a huge ask of this team, regardless of where this game was played. You add in the travel, it makes it even more difficult. Willie Randolph scores 4 touchdowns for Mangum. This is Mangum's looking for their first state championship since 1956. Purple Dragons get a huge semifinal win at home.
Nice, you're muted.
Mute button's undefeated.
Man, that was my first time doing that too.
Call both of us.
But Mangum, you said running back at a great night. They have a really big offensive line for a 1A program down there, and so they got it done with their running game as they usually do. Mangum had some of the best uniforms on the night as well. They're all purple. It's really like those. But yeah, South Platte had another great season. Great career by Roderick Parker. He was a 5-year starting quarterback for those guys, and I believe he went to the semis every year or further. And so yeah, really good stuff out of Coach Feet as usual. Another great season with South Platte. But this Mangum team, we kind of seen this one coming all year long. They've been great all year.
There's a reason they were ranked number 2. Mm-hmm. Coming to postseason play, this team had been tested, I would say, in probably the toughest. I believe they're in. Was it a 2A district? I lose track at this point. I believe there was a 2A district.
Yeah, that's right.
Mangum
yes, because they played with Washita Christian along with Oak Grove. I mean, it was brutal. And for them to come out the way that they did, I believe they lost to Gina in a really high-scoring game early in the football season, and then they lost to Washita Christian. Those are the only 2 losses they've had, but they've been very consistent all year. And I think this is a team that feels like they have an opportunity. They've been in this position before. They would really like to get this title. Again, as Cass mentioned, their first opportunity in quite some time. I'm saying to bring it home, I should say, because they've made it in that stretch in the 2000s. But again, I think this is a team that have a great fan base. They travel really well, and you guys, again, if you watch the videos from those games, man, they get hype. It's not a massive stadium, but they get loud. One of the coolest entrances for a smaller program, and it's easy to kind of get caught up in that dragon hype. But they're gonna have their work cut out for them against the Golden Tornadoes, and we'll see. This will be another intriguing matchup in the Dome.
Purple Dragons. I always love to see the good Purple Dragons make a trip in the Superdome. On the select side in Division 4, Ascension Catholic, Westminster Christian. I think the story of the night here in this one, well, I don't think. The story of the night here in this one was Trevin Simon breaking 2 state records for Ascension Catholic. He came into the game needing 67 yards to break the single-season rushing record. All he did was get 369 yards. So not good at math, but that's more than 67, so he broke the record. He also needed 2 rushing touchdowns to break the single-season state rushing touchdown record. Again, not great at math. 6 is greater than 2. He rushed for 369 yards and 6 touchdowns as Ascension Catholic goes on to beat Westminster Christian 45-14.
I'm not sure any of us saw this one playing out like
No.
this. I thought this was going to be a really close game. This was definitely one of the most surprising ones. But when anybody goes for 369 yards and 6 touchdowns, it's probably not going to be a great competitive game, right? I mean, that's some unbelievable numbers out of Trevin Simon, and this is all with a first-year head coach as well at Ascension Catholic. So he's certainly off to a great start. It's Taylor James getting the Ascension Catholic Bulldogs to the Superdome.
I mean, this isn't new though. Simon, he clearly set the record, but this is what he's done all year. This is what this offense has done all year. And for them to come out with this type of offensive performance is one thing, but defensively to hold this Westminster Christian team to 14 points is really impressive. Stephen George and that offense have rolled for a large portion of the season. And look, their defense has been, I'd say that was talk about the strongest 2A district. That was the strongest 1A district in the state that they played in. Again, a lot of the teams sitting in this top part of the bracket with St. Edmund and Catholic Point Capee and Sacred Heart. So, I mean, this is a really impressive win for Ascension Catholic, but this is a program that consistently hangs around. They're constantly in the semifinals. So this is their first trip since 2018, but really this is kind of what they do. They have their first opportunity to win a title since 1992. That'll be the question. Can they go into the Dome and take care of business? And I think this will be a fun matchup on the other side as well. Yeah,
no doubt. It's this Ascension Catholic team. I think it was 2018 was when they won it last, and then now they're back and with the running game led by Mr. Simon. I'm not going to count them out, but this was very. I don't know if we saw this one with Westminster Christian.
Well, they gave up 42 points last week, and then they shut out this Westminster Christian team through the first half. Like that.
No, it makes no sense.
Yeah, so it almost feels like Westminster just didn't bring their best game maybe that night too.
Yeah, no, that's true. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Last one here, the last semifinal of the night. Definitely not the least important, but Riverside Academy. I tell you, River Parish, stand up, Jason. Is that what we say down there? We're in.
I guess so.
Riverside Academy defeats the Blue Gators of Ascension Episcopal 42-14. This game was close early, and then Riverside just runs away with it. Ascension Episcopal had a great year. Blue Gators under Coach J.J. Magic, tremendous season. This Riverside team, for as we'll call them young as they are, feels like they're maybe just a little bit better than everyone else, and that's kind of what has been playing out over this playoffs. But we talk about how young they are. Their senior running back Jaden Abukwe, 36 carries, 278 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. He has rushed for now over 2,000 yards on the season. This Riverside Academy team under Coach Lee Roussel making a trip back to the Superdome as they defeat the Blue Gators.
It feels like Obikwe and Simon were kind of competing against each other, right? So you could have more touchdowns on the night. But this Riverside team, all I can think about is I saw these guys play early in the season. I was so impressed with how good they were early in the season. And when I saw them, it was without Jaden Obikwe. And so they've added him to an already really good football team. And so obviously Jaden Obikwe has been great. It's the offensive line that is also tremendous for Riverside. Gabe Galvez, I remember talking to Coach Roussel and those guys about this kid, sophomore left tackle. He's going to be a big-time recruit over the next couple of years. And so, Coach Lee Roussel, he's an offensive line guy. And so when he has a weapon like Obikwe in the backfield behind his powerful offensive line, I think that is just a perfect blend. And then on the other side, Coach Lashley and his defense, the defense coordinator there does a great job. Everybody in the coaching realm knows Coach Lashley and has a ton of respect for him as well as a defense coordinator. And so I just think they got a great thing going out there in Riverside. And like you said, they have a bunch of young kids. Like we really didn't hear from Boogie much at all in this game.
No.
And so, I mean, we're talking about another weapon that we didn't even see a whole lot from, And so they can beat you through the air. Right, they can beat you through the air. They can beat you on the ground. They're great defensively, and they're doing it with a lot of young kids too. So this Riverside team, this Riverside program, they're going to be a problem this year and for years to come.
That's what's so scary is that they are so young, and it seems like this is the first step in what is going to be a few teams in a row that have a really good opportunity. We talked about before the season. Their secondary head was filled with 8th and 9th graders. And we know Boogie kind of plays a little bit of both ways, but he's another weapon he's sophomore. So he adds a lot to the offense as well as when he steps in there on defense. Bourgeois, again, a senior quarterback for them who adds another dynamic to this offense as well. Obikwe is a guy who I've been talking about since before the season. And again, he transferred over from East Jeff and really has made his impact on this football team. And I think that's what's so interesting is two high-scoring offenses, but both have really relied on that run game. So I think that's going to be a really fascinating matchup in the Dome. What is important to keep in mind is this Ascension Catholic team is kind of like Riverside's boogeyman. Like they've kind of been the team that has ended Riverside's season quite a bit. So I think Riverside is very well aware of that stigma, and they're definitely going to keep this in mind when they look out for this football game. But I don't think you need any more extra motivation when you have a state title on the line. However, I do think when you're playing a team that you really want to see, it can add a little bit of extra motivation. And let's be honest, guys, everything is a game of inches at this point once you step foot on the Superdome. So really interested to see this game between two really solid rushing attacks.
Yeah, no, that's going to be fun. It's definitely going to make for some interesting matchups in the Superdome, as all of them are. I can't wait to not just get into them and dig into them on Tuesday night, but see them happen this weekend. But it was a tremendous Friday night, semifinal Friday night in Louisiana. The weather, although it did, maybe affect some games, it for the most part held off, and it created some tremendous environments and tremendous atmospheres for these kids to play in. It was a great week. Semifinal week's always fun, but all roads now in Superdome, and we're down to 8 games left. 16 teams are left in the state. On Tuesday night at 8:05, we will get into all of those in great detail and all 8 games. The games start on Thursday. So Tuesday, make sure you're back here with us. And if you're watching along, following us here, like, share, subscribe. Follow us on X. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook as well. We enjoy doing this, and we like to keep this thing going and have fun with y'all while we do it. Again, Tuesday night, we will preview all of the state championship matchups, and then we'll get into them and preview them. They start on Thursday. So here it's, seasons. This is it. There's 16 teams left. Let's go break these guys down and have some fun with it. So we appreciate you all watching. For Lance, Jason, I am Cass. Thank you for watching Talking Ball, y'all. We'll see y'all again on Tuesday night.